Hey, everybody. Today we're going to talk about perception. And specifically, we're going to talk about an assignment that we're going to be doing within perception. So, this is an individual project. And what you will do is you will create and submit your own picture book based on the 7 monocular depth cues. So, you will be creating a picture book using the 7 monocular depth cues. Each page will consist of a picture that you have taken, either on your phone or with a camera, the name of the cue, the definition in your own words, and an explanation of how your picture represents the cue. So each PowerPoint page or each online page will consist of those things. All pictures must be taken by you. No picture should be used from online sources. They should not be drawn um, or taken from another person. Okay. So, what is a monocular depth cue? Well, monocular depth cue is how we see visual cues using only one eye, which is the mono part of binocular. These are powerful because they allow us to see 3D images and they provide us with the ability to really look at depth. So, interposition is our most powerful monocular depth cue, and it is more commonly called overlapping. And what it does is it allows us to understand depth because we see what is in the foreground versus what is in the background based on how much of an image we see and what's blocking other images. So in this picture, you see this woman is closer to us than the Liberty Bell because the Liberty Bell is being partially blocked by the person. And then the children in the background are behind the Liberty Bell because they are being partially blocked by the Liberty Bell. The next monocular depth cue that we're going to talk about is linear perspective. Linear perspective is really looking at parallel lines, and how parallel lines appear to be converging to a point in the distance. However, we know that this isn't accurate because we know that we don't just get to a point in the road and we kind of fall off the edge. But what it is it's a way for us to determine how long a road is, or how long a walkway is, or how long like a hallway is, based on how much convergence is happening versus how much is not. The third depth cue that we're going to talk about is relative size. And what that says is closer things are bigger and further things are smaller. Further away things are smaller. In this drawing, and like I said, we don't want to use drawings, but in this drawing, you see that the closer image of the yellow van is a bigger van, and the further image of the red van is a smaller van. And we know that the two vans are the exact same size, but we know that the red van is further away because it's smaller, and that the yellow van is closer because it's bigger. So, in looking at things, you want to see similar objects and you want to see how they change once you look at them close versus you look at them far away. Or if you're looking at like a row of cars, how much bigger the first car appears than the last car in the row. The next monocular depth cue that we're going to talk about is called texture gradient. Texture gradient says that closer objects are more defined and detailed, and further away objects tend to be blurry and hazy. If you notice in this picture of a pond with lily pads on it, the beginning lily pads or the front lily pads look very well defined, but as you move to the middle of the picture and onto the way back, you're going to see that everything just becomes kind of green, brown, blue, like haze and fog. Um, that is because of texture gradient. Closer objects are going to appear more well defined. Further away objects are going to appear more hazy or blurry. The next one is called atmospheric perspective. And this is one where we look at how far away objects appear to have a bluish tint. What you're really going to look at with a picture, and you can use past pictures from like vacations or things like that, But what you want to look at is distant objects. Things like on the horizon line, like the mountains in the distance of this picture, have that bluish tint. The horizon on at the ocean should have a slightly bluish tint, or any buildings that are really far away should end up having a slightly bluish tint if it's a sunnier day and the far the sky produces that blue haze, which then creates that bluish tint on the faraway objects. The next monocular depth cue we're going to talk about is shadow and shading. Everything creates a shadow or a bulge when a light is projected onto the object. The smaller the shadow, the smaller the object. The closer the shadow, the closer the shadow and the bigger the shadow, the closer you are to the object. So you are going to look for a object with a shadow. When you're creating this page in your picture book, you want to make sure that you create the object or you show the object and the shadow. You don't want to just do what I call Peter Pan pictures, where you just show the shadow or just show the person, but there's no connection between the object and the shadow. You want to make sure that you have both the object and the shadow in the picture. And then the last one we're going to talk about is called motion parallax. And in this one, what we do is we see that as the world is moving in one direction, we tend to feel like we're moving in the opposite. So as you're driving a car, the best way that I can describe this one is as you're driving a car and you're sitting at a light and it's a turning light. If you're kind of daydreaming, and the cars beside you start to move, you're gonna feel like you're moving backwards. Or even if you're sitting at a light anywhere and you see a car's in your peripheral that's moving, you'll start to feel like you're inching backwards. Everything kind of feels like it's going in the opposite direction. Like when you're walking, everything's going the other way, except for the sun, the moon, and the stars. They always seem to come with you. So the best way to take a picture like this is to kind of swing or wave your hand real fast and you'll see the blur of the hand. Anything that kind of creates like a semi-blurry image of pieces of the image is showing the motion parallax in action. And this is a Prezi presentation that was done by me a few years ago that you can look at. So basically, this is the world through, or these monocular depth cues through Disney World. So if you look at this, you see the different depth cues listed on a page. And then this just explains what a depth cue is. And then we look at interposition, and that interposition is overlapping, that objects that are fully visible are closer than objects which are partially blocked. That I explained that my son is in front of the fountain, in front of the Muppet Vision, and therefore we know that my son is in the front and that the Muppet Vision is behind due to the blocking. The next one is relative size, and then I have two pictures of the castle. We know, of course, the castle didn't get bigger just because we got closer to it, and it didn't get smaller just because we got further away from it. The next one is atmospheric perspective, and I show where the bluish tint kind of looks on the buildings in Epcot as you're looking across the waterway. And then texture gradient, and we talk about how you can see the clearly definition in the front, but as you look back at the shrubbery in the back, that you see it is just kind of green haze. Linear perspective, you see the tracks and how they look like they're getting smaller. And you also see it in this sidewalk right here of how it looks like it's going in and eventually going to hit a point. Motion parallax, any of the rides, you'll get that kind of blurry vision as you're moving forward. It looks like things are moving the opposite direction. shadow and shading. We've got the elephant and his shadow right there. So you've got the elephant and the shadow. So again, you don't want that Peter Pan where you just have the shadow or just have the elephant. You want to make sure the shadow and the elephant are in the same picture, or whatever you have with the shadow is in the same picture. And then here's just a little bit of like what we learned. So this cue, which cue is this? This would be linear perspective because of the walkway. And what cue is this? This would be inner position because of the overlapping of the menu in front of my son. And then what cue is this? This would be texture gradient because the well defining. And then as you look underneath, it just kind of looks gray and hazy. And then what cue is this? This would be shadow and shading. And then it just talks a little bit about sensations being the raw material and perceptions are your finished product. So sensations are your sounds and your vision, and perceptions are the song or the whole picture. And that just gives you a little bit of where I got the information from. Okay. So that's kind of what you're going to be creating. If you have any questions, please email me. And next time we'll be talking about learning. You have a great day.